Hello, my name is Matt Schnars with the City of Durham's Community Development Department. It's a pleasure to present this webinar to train you for participation in the 2020 Durham Point-in-Time Count. Thank you for volunteering. In this section, we will explain what the PIT count is, who we will count, and why we do this count. The point-in-time count, or PIT count, is a one-day census count for all persons experiencing homelessness in the community. The PIT count has two components. The sheltered component counts persons sleeping in homeless shelters, and the unsheltered portion counts people sleeping outdoors or in places not meant for human habitation. The PIT count occurs annually in Durham and simultaneously in over 400 other communities across the United States in late January. PIT counts began in the late 1990s and have become more organized and well coordinated over the years. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, often referred to as HUD, requires communities to complete the PIT count each year, and the count is required as part of funding allocation from HUD. The PIT count helps us better understand the characteristics and extent of homelessness. This helps us do a better job with strategically allocating limited housing resources to where they will have the greatest impact. This helps us use our limited resources to ensure that people experiencing homelessness are rehoused within 30 days, which is a key federal goal. The PIT count is also an opportunity for us to engage and educate the broader community about homelessness. The goal of the PIT count is to identify and count every person experiencing homelessness in the community. Experiencing homelessness means living in shelters, transitional housing programs, and emergency hotel placements, as well as those living in places not meant for human habitation, otherwise referred to as those who are experiencing homelessness and are unsheltered. Data collected from the PIT count helps us to align resources to meet the variety of needs of those experiencing homelessness. The information also serves as a snapshot of how we are doing in reducing the numbers of people experiencing homelessness in Durham. Data is collected on the night of the PIT. This information is then provided to the lead agency for the continuum of care, or COC. In our case, this is the City of Durham's Community Development Department, and then compiled and verified before it is submitted to HUD. HUD compiles the aggregate data from all point-in-time counts conducted across the country to do several things, including determining how much money will be awarded to local jurisdictions and formal reports to Congress. People who will sleep in a location not meant for human habitation are counted as part of the unsheltered portion of the PIT count. 4 to 5 person teams of volunteers and service providers travel to locations such as encampments, streets, cars, trucks, buses, parking decks, retail lots such as Walmart, grocery stores, etc., highway exit ramps, over underpasses, hospital emergency room waiting areas, nighttime hours at 24-hour restaurant grocery stores such as IHOP and Kroger, and other known unsheltered locations where people go to sleep. We want to encourage teams to visit parking lots of commercial properties to see if any vehicles look like they may be occupied overnight. This concludes the first of several videos on the 2020 Durham Point-in-Time Count. Please complete the subsequent videos for the training for the count. Hello. This is the second in a series of training videos for the 2020 Durham Point-in-Time Count. This video is going to focus on how to complete a survey using our mobile app. The mobile application is called Counting Us. You should already be registered for Durham's Point-in-Time Count, by going to the URL https://durham.pointintimeinfo. If you haven't registered yet, please do so before continuing. We'll talk through these surveys individually, but here's the big picture of what they are and who they should be used with. The general survey form is for everyone. It's the ideal way to collect information about the people you'll be interacting with, because it relies on people's own responses to the questions we have. Our goal is for every person you encounter to answer the questions on the general survey form. If you encounter anyone under 25 who is not with a parent, you should complete the general survey form. Then also complete the youth survey form. There is some specific information that we want to learn about people under 25 to help ensure their needs are being identified and met. And this form includes questions that cover those pieces. Finally, in the event that you encounter someone whom you either can't interview or someone who doesn't want to be interviewed, you should use the observation form. This one is less ideal because it will just include your perspective and not the responses of the person you're counting, but it's still better than having no information on that person at all. In a few slides, we'll start going over what specific questions and information you'll be asking people about on each of these survey forms. Then we'll talk about how to start conversations and conduct interviews with people. Team leaders also will have a couple of paper copies of the general survey form in Spanish and English in their packet. The English forms may be used with anyone who says that they do not want you to enter their personal information into the mobile device. The Spanish form may be used to interview someone who speaks only Spanish, but it does require a team member who is bilingual to use. Your mobile app also will have the general sheltered survey form. This may be used by anyone or by one or two teams. If they are sent to a church or facility that is opening their building to keep people warm overnight, we will let the team leaders know about these assignments on the night of the count. These teams will use this form if they visit each such a site and find people who would otherwise be unsheltered if they were not keeping warm overnight in that location. Before we dive into the survey forms you'll use and the questions you'll ask people, let's start with a few general tips on how to conduct surveys. We'll keep repeating some of these points throughout the training, but it's important to start thinking about them now. First and foremost, always be respectful of the people you meet on the night of the count. Remember that they are vulnerable and that you're asking some pretty personal questions. Be respectful of their choice not to answer any or all questions. It's okay if someone refuses to participate. Getting their consent to talk to them and record their information is important. If they do consent to speaking with you, be sure to ask every question on the survey. It's okay to skip the ones that they may not answer for you earlier in the conversation. For example, maybe they tell you that you're a veteran before you ask, so you don't need to re-ask them later when you get to that question. Finally, there may be some questions on the survey that feel a little awkward or uncomfortable to ask. It's okay and normal to feel that way, but it's important that you do ask all of the questions in the way that we've rephrased them. The gender question is a good example. A lot of people might think that they can identify someone's gender by looking at and talking to them. So rather than asking, how do I identify your gender, you might instead want to say, okay, and so I can see that you're a male, or you're male, right? To someone that you think is a man. There are a few reasons we don't want you to do that. First, there are people who don't identify as the gender they might most readily look like, and phrasing questions in that way makes it seem like you think you know the answer is much more likely to lead them to saying, yep, that's right, rather than giving you an answer of how they identify. Second, there may be people who identify as something other than male or female, or whose gender identity is different from what you might think. It is when looking at them they live in a world where people probably make assumptions about them every day. And each time someone repeats that kind of judgment, it could feel really harmful to the person you're asking. And that kind of harm adds up to a lot over time. By choosing to ask everyone, how do you identify your gender, you are doing a disservice to those who wish others knew them to ask questions in a more open-ended way, rather than assuming prescribing their identity. The same premise applies to all of the questions on the PIT survey. The general PIT count survey is to be used with everyone. You will fill out one survey per person. The mobile app will link the surveys when the first person being interviewed indicates there is more than one person in the household. Note that in an encampment, unrelated adults may be sleeping in the same location but are not considered to be members of the same household unless they indicate they are one household. When there is more than one person in the household, the first person interviewed, usually a parent of children is involved with the first person spoken to in an absence of children, will be considered the head of household. All other people in the household will be surveyed and have a relationship to this person. Also, the mobile app survey offers the opportunity to answer all of the questions for any children in the household as well as the adults. Make sure you go to the app on your mobile device and practice try entering the data. You can use made-up data if you wish. Doing this will allow you to understand the process, know the questions, and start to feel comfortable with some of the things you will be asking the night of the count. This survey is to be used with youth, meaning anyone under 25 years old and who is not with a parent or guardian. Respect the interviewee and ensure all data collected is accurate. Again, make sure you go to the app on your mobile device and practice entering data in the youth survey. You can use the made-up data if you wish. Doing this will allow you to understand the process, know the questions, and start to feel comfortable with some of the things you will be asking on the night of the count. This concludes the second in a series of videos for the 2020 Durham point-in-time count training. Please review subsequent videos to complete the training.